What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? 49 coming out United for me shoutcast for the OUSA Dota League Season 2. We're loading into game number 2 of the losers bracket, a best of 3 series of eSnug up against Recursion. Recursion, despite giving it a very good fight, did eventually take a fall to eSnug as they had this very late game lineup. Very questionable decision making coming out from Thailander that opted for a very early Drums of Endurance as opposed to going for a Blink Dagger, and the Nagasaran who despite having virtually uncontested farm over in the safe lane, and despite also being fed 3 assists from all the kills on the offlane Bristleback, wasn't able to farm up a Radiance in time, and so the entire game really does boil down to that. Standard Alpha Male on the Kunkka, stand-up performance from him, able to almost turn the game around for them, but because Nagasaran opted for the Fusel Blade and was forced to go for it because her farm was so low, and because she wasn't able to fight effectively, because the Nagasaran with the Fusel Blade doesn't offer you anything against compared to Ember Spirit with a Battle Fury 24 minutes of the game. She runs in, she pops her illusion, and then she gets slayed to the fist and dies. So the only thing that you could use with that is as an ult bot, but when you're 4 position Nagasaran, when you're 1 position Nagasaran is forced to play as a 4 position, things become very iffy. But now in terms of picks and bans, things are looking very interesting, as we've got a Tinker and a Doombringer ban coming in for Recursion. They really want to shut down Brightside, New Zealand's favourite hero, the Tinker, especially since they're on the Radiant side, but they in exchange get that first pick, Lycanthrope, and Lycanthrope's a hero that's picked or banned in almost every single game because he favours, not only is he incredibly powerful and the mid and late game, especially with the split push that comes out, so he pushes faster than Nature's Prophet and also functions as a carry. He favours the Death Ball Almeida, where you group up as 5 very early on, take as many towers as possible, and so if Recursion ever get an early game lead, they can snowball out of control, because Lycanthrope, he comes online very quickly, and about 10-11 minutes of the game with Treads, Medallion Carries, and Vlads, Lycanthrope will out DPS every other carry for the next 10 minutes. And so you could take these fights, take these towers, and then use those towers to capitalize and snowball with that gold lead, and use that to get your support so rich that your entire team can take these fights 5v5 decisively and try to break the high ground and end the game as soon as possible. eSnug once again got the Skywrath, so they're going to have Diablos over the Skywrath Mage, most likely, and CCG is going to be the offlane Faceless Void, or it could be Captain Taichu, since him and Brightside New Zealand are 2 of the 3 cores, and the other core is usually a bit of a toss-up between CCGs, Diablos, or Tiggle Biddies, depending on what hero it is. Dash Prophet being banned out by eSnug, as the Death Ball push coming out from Recursion is already strong enough with the Lycanthrope. You don't want to also be facing that Exorcism. Batrider is second pick coming out from Recursion, as Batrider is usually, he hasn't been banned in the first banning stage as often now because of the Napalm nerf, and so Batrider is a hero that if you've got a good Batrider player and you're really comfortable in his ability to be able to get a lot of gold from the offlane, whether it's a 1v1 matchup or 1v3 matchup, you even see Batrider in the mid lane occasionally in competitive games to ensure that he has a good lane, because if Batrider is able to get a very early Blink Dagger, you have the initiation advantage. Batrider is the single best initiator in the game because he has the ability to be able to jump in and start a fight 4v5 like a Vengeful Spirit, but unlike the Venge, he starts it in your favor because you're dragging a hero back to them. Unlike the Tide, you're not committing a huge amount of investment for this. You could go for solo pickoffs, or you could start a fight by lassoing off a critical target. Batrider also synergizes well with other initiators, so if you've got a Batrider and a Void, Batrider runs in, lassos one, Void leaps in when they clump to defend, and he chronos them, as opposed to if it was a Faceless Void and a Tidehunter. So if you had a 1 position Void, Tidehunter blinks and ravages, then Faceless Void blinks as well, but he might accidentally chrono his own teammates, so there's always that potential turnaround, or the option for things to go wrong. Batrider, he doesn't give you any of that. If he's able to get the Sky Hook combination, so if he gets the Blink Dagger as well as the Force Staff up very early on, he's able to blink in, isolate the target with the lasso, then Force Staff himself out, so you immediately start to fight 4v5 on your terms, and that gives you a huge advantage, especially if you're able to pick off a critical hero, such as the ones carrying the mech, or one of their backline support heroes, or even that carry if you have enough damage to be able to kill him and start a fight that way. So the Batrider, if he has a good start and a good laning stage, can control the tempo and the outcome of the game by being able to consistently apply pressure, and by being so damn effective at isolating and pulling out a single target. But Recursion, going through almost all their reserve time just to ban out a Weaver, and so the reason for this is Weaver in a 1v1 offlane solo up against a Batrider completely destroys Batrider. You actually see some Weavers in this case choose the max Gemini attack over Sakuchi, because you really shouldn't be Sakuchi into a Batrider, because you can always get the stacks off, and with the Napalm and with the Firefly can translate that into a kill, because he makes your turn rate so slow. So what you do instead is you go for a lot of trade in terms of right clicks with the Gemini attack, and because Batrider, his base damage is so low and so heavily dependent on sticky Napalm, you are able to win the lane at 1. And you're able to zone him out, prevent Batrider from getting anything, and if he ever tries to play aggressively, you kill him. So the way to beat a Batrider if you're a solo 1v1 matchup is you play more aggressively than he can. And so Shadow Shaman being the 4th ban coming out from Recursion, very surprising. Would have thought they'd like to pick it up themselves, as it synergizes well with the Lycanthrope because it gives you that extra pushing power. And if Shadow Shaman's also able to get a Blink Dagger, he can split push, and so he can push one lane while Lycanthrope pushes another, so that gives you that strategic positioning advantage. But that being said, I guess they didn't. They might not have realized that they had the next pick after that. They don't want to give away the Shadow Shaman to the Faceless Void, since Shadow Shaman and Skywrath Mage, very powerful combo. If you're able to set up these early kills, especially if you rotate mid, Concussive Shot into Shackle, follow up with a few Arcane Bolts, and the Mass Serpent Wards in conjunction with the Mystic Flare and the Chronosphere makes it very difficult. And so that's what I mean by Faceless Void giving you that drafting advantage. Because A, he's very flexible, you don't know if he's a 1-position or a 3-position farmer, and some teams like Horseman and Ruckus like to run a 1-position Void, and he still can, he still is an incredibly powerful hard carry. He's one of the 3 hardest carries in the game. Him, the Spectre, and the Anti-Mage form the Unholy Trinity. Duso also enters into it, but she kind of does her own thing because she's also powerful in the early stages of the game. So Faceless Void, he forces you to have to ban out heroes to synergize well with the Void. But the issue with the Void is you can't ban them all out. There are so many heroes that work well with the Void that you have to ban out specific heroes that you don't want to play against, and that means you're effectively wasting bans because you have to deal with the Void. So you don't want to deal with overpowered combinations such as, for instance, Skywrath Mage and a Witch Doctor. Very powerful ganking, very powerful in the lane, and incredibly overpowered if he gets a Chronosphere off, because you've got the Mystic Flare and the Death Ward, and if he ever gets an Aghanim Scepter, the Witch Doctor can win the game on his own. Centaur Warrunner being picked up, so we could actually be seeing potentially a mid Batrider, as Centaur Warrunner is completely useless as a 4 or 5 position, unless if you have something like a Tiny, but even then, that's such a crazy pocket strat, I don't really think that Recursion are going to be doing for this. But then again, they also have been known to throw the textbook out the window and go for these crazy strategies, but every single time they do so, the game never ends well for them. So we could be potentially seeing a Centaur offlane, with the Lycan in the safe lane and Batrider mid. Batrider mid isn't too bad, because it's difficult to harass the Batrider because with the way the ramps are, so you can constantly maintain the high ground. And Batrider in the mid lane, while you might not be able to decisively win your mid lane, you make it very easy for supports to gank your lane. Because you're constantly going to be applying pressure with the Sticky Napalm. If you get above 4 stacks, so 5 stacks is the critical number, you go for a kill. Batrider used to be a very powerful 1v1 mid laner, because at level 1 you stack Napalms, use them to get last hits, and constantly snare up the enemy. The instant you hit level 2, and they've got 5 stacks, you pop Firefly, you dive them. They're going to die before they kill you. But Viper pickup coming out from Recursion is a very interesting draft coming out so far. As eSnug, they banned out the Venomancer and they pick up the Mirana. So Venomancer works very well with the Lycanthrope because it gives Lycanthrope a lot of killing power. If you catch a hero out with Gale at level 1 or in the laning stage of the game, they're dead. 15 seconds there. One of the most powerful level 1 abilities in the game, just because it lasts for so damn long. You also can't purge off the Gale. It's a huge advantage that it has. You can use it to actually counteract the Slark. If you pop a BKB, or as for instance if Juggernaut Blade spins, it won't purge off the Gale. Repel does nothing. So the only thing that stops the Venomancer is if you stand your ground and kill the Venomancer before he kills you, and trying to make the trade, or if you have a mobility ability such as a Blink or a Leap coming out from the Mirana. The Venomancer works very well with the Lycanthrope, and also works well against the Void, because all you have to do is drop your ultimate. So if you don't ult the Venomancer, he's going to ult you, and the Nova will do a huge amount of damage before you get your BKB. It will wreck the Skywrath Mage, because he is so damn squishy. And we see an Alchemist pickup coming out from eSnug. It could actually be an Alchemist mid to work against the Batrider, but most likely going to be a support duo of the Skywrath Mage and the Alchemist. Not the greatest support duo, because there's no real intrinsic synergy, since Alchemist only deals physical damage, with his abilities, and Skywrath Mage only deals magical damage, and his abilities amplify magic damage. But the synergy that you do have with this two, the Skywrath Mage sets up for the Alchemist. So you throw out the Concussive Shot from long range, Concussive Shot lands, Alchemist is channeling his stun, he guarantees the unstable concoction, and then you just beat them down. If you get a good concoction off, it's pretty much a guaranteed kill. And so that's the rationale behind this. And Alchemist is a very beefy frontline support. Once he gets a few items off, once he gets his ultimate, because he's got that obscene amount of life regen. And against a team that doesn't have the Ancient Apparition to prevent your regen, Alchemist actually is a fairly powerful pickup, especially since he can translate to a Pseudo Core, and it's not pick up utility items for the rest of your team, pardon myself. Pugna, 5th ban coming out from Recursion. So Pugna is a hero that really shuts down the Death Ball that Recursion are hoping to go for. Since I've got the Centaur Warrunner Stampede, so that provides a huge amount of utility. But with the Viper pickup, they've got 4 priority heroes. They've got 4 core heroes that all need farm. So unless they're going to be running a support position Centaur, but a support Centaur is more or less completely useless, because they've got no snare to send them up. The only snare they have is Sticky Napalm, which is pretty irrelevant until you get a few stacks in it, and even then you need a fair amount of levels for it to be effective, or the Viper. But Viper doesn't want to max poison attack. You never max poison attack on the Viper. At most you get 2 points. You want to max out your other abilities because they do so much in the lane. And if you're going to be relying on, if you're going to be waiting until Viper hits level 6 to be able to try to gank with the Viper Strike to set up as a hoof stomp, the Centaur's going to be having a bad time. So I really don't know what Recursion are looking to do with the lineups. The Silencer as well can also function as a core. You can run Silencer as a 4 position. He's great in that sense against certain lineups. So Silencer is a great counter pick to the Faceless Void, because when you time walks in your Global Silence, Void now he's sitting there with his dick in his hands. He can't do anything because he can't chrono. If he can't chrono, if he doesn't have a BKB, you can turn around and blow him up. Or you can even just stand your ground and right click him. You can catch him out with the lasso. Centaur Warrior can run him in the hoof stomp, double edge him in the face. Viper can Viper Strike him and just cut him around that way, because Void is now in a position, and it forces eSnug to respond to be able to react to the Void, unless they decide to leave him, cut him loose. In which case, you get a free kill in exchange for an ultimate, and with that free kill, you can then, you know that they eSnug can no longer defend their towers, or at least they can't fight 5v5, so you're able to take a tower off that. So Silencer, great counter pick, also works well against the Skywrath Mage and the Alchemist for obvious reasons, since Alchemist, if you see him channel his concoction, and you throw out the Global Silence, he's going to blow himself up, and a support position Alchemist, especially since Alchemist is 0 base armor, very, very squishy, very easy to kill before he gets his rage off. Before he gets his rage, and even with his rage, he still is fairly squishy as a support hero, because he's not going to be having any strength boosting items for a very long time. And Alchemist, absolutely abysmal stat growth. So as a support position hero, Alchemist, not too bad, but with all the recent nerfs, there are definitely better heroes to work with the Skywrath Mage. Would have preferred the Witch Doctor to deal with this, especially since Witch Doctor punishes the Lycanthrope, because Lycanthrope, he can't out-DPS the Witch Doctor, especially once the Malediction comes online, and he doesn't have any way to disrupt the Witch Doctor when he's ulting. Witch Doctor can even later on find farm for something like a Ghost Scepter, so he can sit there and force Lycan out. It works well with the Faceless Void. So it will be very interesting to see how Recursion decide to lane this, because they've effectively drafted 5 cores. This is a pub level draft coming up from Recursion. You see some method in the madness, because you've got the Centaur. The Centaur Warrunner is picked up primarily for his ultimate, to ensure that pre-4 stuff, Batrider is able to blink in, lasso, and get out. But it's very interesting. We actually could be seeing even a jungle Batrider. I suppose that's something they could look to do. But the issue with the jungle Batrider is, A, you need level 2. Well, you can jungle at 1, but with the sticky napalm reworks, it now deals half damage. Very inefficient. Well, but actually, it looks like AIT is going to the mid lane. So the interested players from both teams. Recursion once again on the dire side. AIT running to the mid lane as the Viper. Looks like he's got Smoker to seed up on him. Arab King once again going to be the 1 position farmer. Got Defense of the Assholes. And what looks like perhaps a 4 position juggling Batrider. Standing Alpha Male going to be the Silencer. It looks like he's going to be going for a Soul Ring ASAP, so he can spam out that Curse on the Silent. Scrub once again going to be the off lane as the Centaur Warrunner, so he's got safety wards. He's going to try to place it, but the Wolves are scouting him out. So if they're able to spot out the ward, things could be difficult. Actually, places a very obvious ward. This should be D1 very early on. If any of the supports from eSnug have their sentries up. Diablos looks like he's going to be a safe lane farmer as the Faceless Void. Spooky Scary Skeleton. This time he's going to be showing off his Mirana skills, so he's going to be the 4 position Mirana. You're actually the 5 position, as the Alchemist should be taking the 4 position role. Captain Taichu and mid-Skywrath Mage. The last time he did this, he went 20 for 2, so I'm looking forward to see what he does this time. And Brightside New Zealand, going to be over on that Lone Druid. This is a hero that I absolutely detest. But that being said, Lone Druid does give you a lot of flexibility, and he does make for action-packed games if you're able to execute him effectively, because he does give you that strategic positioning. So I place him in the same boat as the Nature's Prophet. But personal bias aside, very powerful hero. Sees the cheese, going to be the Alchemist, and looks like there's no sentry, so this very crude and very blunt safety ward, well, it's not even a safety ward, it's a block ward, is going to be unmolested. Very greedy pub ward coming out from him. You'll be placing an aggressive ward against the offlaner. You want to place it there, so you can see where he is at all times, and then also you can see if supports are rotating in. But nonetheless, looks like Captain Taichu already zoning out AIT. Very surprised, because Viper does incredibly well against the Skywrath Mage. He should have actually held on to his skill point, and maybe even opted to skill something like Corrosive Skin at 1. If Viper maxes out Corrosive Skin, Taichu's in for a bad time. Because every time he throws on the bolt, he's not only going to be taking the damage from the Corrosive Skin, which is fairly negligible, he's going to be eating the snare, which means that AIT can trade hits. AIT actually should be trading hits. Arcane Bolt's got a 5-second cooldown at level 1. Every time he bolts you, you run up and you throw 3 attacks at him. He's got 0 armor. The way you beat a Skywrath is you trade, and you try to outlast him. Because he's going to burn through mana faster, he's going to burn through HP, especially since Clarities cost a lot more than Tangos. And in the mid lane, you're going to have access to a bottle. So Skywrath Mage, he wins mid by being a dick and zoning you up by constantly throwing out orbs at 1 with the Arcane Bolt. But the way to counter that is you just bring an extra set of tangos with you, or if you're a hero like a Viper, you play just as aggressively, because he can't kill you before you kill him. You're going to be able to out-DPS him down with a poison attack before he out-DPSs you down with the Arcane Orb, especially level 1, when it has such a long cooldown. But AIT, critical misplay coming out from him. And this could actually lose him the lane because of this. Because he's been playing so passively, Taichu gets a free bottle. He should be able to get that range cream. He can actually throw out an Arcane Bolt if he really wants to get it. But over the off lane, Brightside actually playing very far forward. Incredibly surprised he's doing this. He's got a Spirit Bear. Actually, it looks like the Spirit Bear is forced all the way back to the fountain, so he took a lot of damage. So that's why he's playing that far forward. No safety ward for Brightside, unless it's been dewarded. But since there's no sentry, it looks like he doesn't actually have access to the sentry ward. Captain Taichu really wanted to go for that kill, Caesar Cheese and Spooky Scare Skeletons. It looks like they're going to be a support duo. Bit of a questionable support duo because you've got two heroes that need setup. Of course, if you've got an exceptionally good Alchemist or Mirana player, they don't need setup, but ideally, you never want to leave anything to chance. You want to get rid of as many variables as possible, so you want the setup. In this case, who's setting up for who? Alchemist can run and try to get Concoction off, but because Concoction has been nerfed, so now that's 2 seconds, you have 2 seconds less of a window to be able to throw it. Very difficult to be able to land it. And because these two supports, they don't have any real setup, Scrub should be having a fantastic lane against the Faceless Void. That being said, Void can actually play very aggressive, and while I say that, Taichu styles all over AIT, gets a kill, and gets his Invis. Do apologize for missing that, but Scrub, he's going to be taking a fall, actually gets a good 2-man hook stomp off. Scooty Scary Skeleton, actually trying to spawn them out. He goes high, but Diablo's also catching them out. Now he's going low, he's got the TP up, but the first time lock could be enough. Scrub's actually sitting there. He can at least try to throw out a double edge to return some damage, and to force Diablos to burn through a bit more of his regen, but he could have sat there, meekly accepted his fate. Courier was also killed, so Captain Taichu able to do a lot of work. Actually, he's going in for the top lane. He's got the Invis route, so he can choose to go and set up a kill. He ideally wants to kill one of the supports. It looks like we've got a support position Batrider. I have so many issues with this, but the first and foremost being Batrider needs a blink. Bat without a blink is a sad, sad dude. Arab King caught up this concussive shot. Lycanthrope is fairly slow, especially before he gets the shapeshift. Taichu taking a lot of damage, standing on the ground with the sticky napalm charges. The Brightside able to seal the deal. The defense of the assholes trying to run down Taichu, and the AIT's there to help him out. Captain Taichu actually could be taking the fall right now. As Brightside New Zealand not able to help him out, so it's forced off. And Captain Taichu, Skywrath Mage is insanely fast. He's the fastest support hero in the game at 325 movement speed, almost as fast as Luna at 330, I believe, or the Chaos Knight. And Centaur Warrunner actually opted for an early point return. Usually I'm against this, but in this lane actually makes a fair amount of sense, because they're either going to kill him or they're going to poke him. And if they poke him, the return does a lot of work. And it also means that if you're left alone against the Void, Void can't just throw free attacks on you. So you're always going to need to trade something for it. Otherwise, you usually want to max out the Hoofstomp. AIT with a double damage rune, but he's level 3. Brightside New Zealand, he's level 4. He's almost got level 5. If he gets a lucky lull tangle off in tower range, he can turn the gank around. And so he's got level 5 now. He immediately resummons his bear. Actually, no, he's still holding onto his bear. But he's got the Entanglement Claws now. He's got the bear summon available, but you never want to feed your bear. It's worth 300 gold. But while that's happening, Taichu level 5, 2-level advantage on AIT, who's been completely zoned out and lost first blood to a Skywrath. This is a matchup that he should destroy, because once Viper gets a few points in Corrosive Skin, once that Nether Toxin comes online, Skywrath has got 0 armor. You have to win the lane at 1 in this matchup. And because he played so passively, and let Taichu throw free orbs at him, you want to trade. Every time he harasses you, you harass him right the hell back. Especially since you've got a snare built in, so you're able to trade more right clicks. He can't right click because right click's fairly worthless compared to yours, since he's also going to be taking creep aggro as well when he does this. Defense of the assholes, eating concussive shot and 1 Arcane Orb. And this 4 position Batrider hasn't really been too effective. Actually, could even be the 5 position. But it looks like Silence has taken that role, so standing alpha male is sitting there top. He's almost got soul rings, so he's going to constantly be throwing out what looks like the last word. So prioritizing last word over Curse of the Silence could be a bit of a misplay. Would have preferred max Curse of the Silence against Lone Druid, because then it forces him to opt for an early point in Rabbit. And even then, Lone Druid has a very low mana pool, because the only other ability he has is Summon Bear. And if his Summon Bear's on cooldown, he's got nothing to break that Curse of the Silence. It does a huge amount of damage, he's able to zone him out quite effectively. And also, if he's ever able to find farm for his Aghanim Scepter, or in these team fights when he global silences, having a max Curse of the Silence gives you a lot more damage and a lot more team fight control as a 4-position farmer, as opposed to if you were a solo safe lane or a core position silencer. Because the Curse of the Silence, incredibly powerful ability, works very well also against the Void, so if Silencer ever rotates the bottom lane, they actually should have tried to match up the Silencer against the Void, to ensure that you can harass out the Void, because he's only got 1 ability with the Time Walk, and while it doesn't cost too much mana, and if you're wasting it early on, you're going to run out of mana before the Silencer does, and once the Curse of Silence comes in, you're taking a lot of damage. Silencer can also be used as a great counter pick against the Morphling, because the Global Silence prevents him from morphing out, as well as the last word, and being more importantly, Morphling only has one active in the early stage of the game. He's got the Morph as well, but it's not going to break the Curse of the Silence. Unless he opts for a very early point in the Adaptive Strike, but Adaptive Strike costs 100 mana per pop. And so he's not really going to be wanting to skill an early point in Adaptive Strike because he wants maxed out Waveform and Morph as soon as possible. And his Waveform costing him obscene amount of mana because it's so damn powerful. And so that means that you just have the Silencer just constantly spam out Curse, and it forces the Morphling to rotate and switch to another lane. Because he can't sit there against the Silencer, because the Curse cycle will keep him so low, and will burn him of all his mana so he can't Waveform out, and you can play very aggressively against the Morphling. But in this case, looks like Spooky Scary Skeleton holding Diablo's in his hand. He's got the Chronosphere available, and with 2 points in the walk, he can help set up a gank, but Skywrath Mage kills the standard Alpha Male. Caesar Cheese gets called out to double edge as well as a Hoopstop, loses a lot of life from that. But Caesar Cheese being given a lot of free experience in this lane, as Captain Taichu's been rotating around as well, so Brightside New Zealand actually rotates mid, so a lot of lane switching coming out from eSnug. But 4 kills ahead, we've already got about 3,000 gold lead, about 7.5 minutes, and very surprised it's this high, especially this early on, about 2,500, almost 3,000 EXP lead. And that's due to the fact that in terms of last hits, Lycan has absolutely nothing. Faces forward, Diablo's got 47 for 6, so he's obscenely farmed. Concussive Shot now flies, as well as the Concoction and the Mystic Flare style all over him. He's a cheese, he could be taking 4 scrubs, Hoopstops, didn't even need it, could have just gone for the double edge to save himself the mana. Brightside, he's picked up an 8-minute hand of minus on an off-lane lone Druid. He's picked up a kill somehow, he's got an obscene amount of gold, and with a Demolish available for the Spirit Bear, he's able to siege down the tier 1 and actually deal a fair amount of damage. If they don't force a fortification, if they don't rotate, that's a free tower. So gold lead's only going to get higher and higher. Arab King eats an arrow, but the arrow's stacked up in the Chronosphere, so unfortunately it doesn't provide any lockdown, it does provide the damage. Arab King should be taking fall. No shapeshift available. So eSnug, they know that Lycanthrope, he's weakest in the lane, and so you kill him in the lane. He offers you absolutely nothing in the lane phase. Wolf at 1, Wolf at 2 is completely useless. The only benefit you get from it is a small increase in damage if you got snares, or perhaps body blocks if you got some sick micro skills. Otherwise, you want to go for, you usually start with Feral Impulse or Howl at 1, because it gives you a lot more value at 1. Then Alpha Male eats a Concussive Shot, Ancient Seal over at AIT. Captain Taichu immediately switches targets over in the Silencer. Silencer takes a fall. Caesar Cheese going to be taking the retaliatory kill. Has 0 armor, the Never Talks hurts like hell. AIT can actually stand his ground right now. He's going to be taking a fall regardless. He can't run against the Skywrath, so you might as well deal as much damage as possible. But he breaks, he runs, and when he runs, Taichu just burns him down with the Arcane Bolt. Almost maxed out Ancient Seal available. Diablo is taking a fair amount of damage from the Wolves, but the Wolves are actually worth a fair amount of golden experience. You never want to feed them, you never want to give anything away for free, especially to the safe lane farmer. He's got his own minus, so double minus already available. Arrow flies up, catches out Arab King. There's about 3.5 second arrow. Diablo's, he's praying for a time lock proc. No time lock procs yet. The last one forces him off. Curse of Silence unfortunately not cast as well, so it does do a fair amount of damage. And Brightside New Zealand, he's also there, just farming in the jungle in the meanwhile. The support Batrunner pickup has done absolutely nothing. He still doesn't have Lasso. He's got Tranquil Boots and nothing else. They don't give a damn about the Napalm unless you've got levels. They can actually tank out the Firefly and Napalm and actually turn around and kill the Batrunner before he deals enough damage to get the kill himself. Centaur Warrunner, he's picked up a very early Planeswalker's Cloak, and so this is a bad item build because it delays your blink. Same with the Batrunner. Centaur Warrunner without Blink Dagger is more or less useless. If you're able to get, the only caveat to this is if you hit level 6 early, and their supports don't have their boots up, or if you catch one out on their own, then you can stampede him for a kill. But in this case, because you can't go on the Diablos unless the Diablos misplaced, because he's got Time Walk and Chronosphere, so he can actually stand his ground and kill you. The Centaur Warrunner isn't giving you anything. If Batrunner had a blink, or if Batrunner was 6, the Centaur Warrunner pickup makes a lot more sense then, because then you've at least got the strategic advantage of the Stampede to help set up for the rest of your team. But otherwise, it's not really giving you anything. They're leaving AIT alone in the top lane. He's on mech duty. The Viper has been completely shut down and destroyed. This is something that very rarely happens. And it actually shouldn't have happened if he played a lot more aggressively against Taichu. But Taichu and the Skywrath Mage, good performance coming up from him. Able to ensure first blood. He rotated over, he wasted a lot of time, but was able to eventually secure a kill. And the supports over on eSnug, a lot more experience up on them. The 7,000, about 6,000 EXP lead, this is absolutely huge right now. Diablos leaps in. Global Silence has been used. A good recognition coming from Recursion. Diablos actually could be taking a fall. There you go. Last word ensures it. Defense of the Assault actually should switch targets over the Brightside. Brightside, double damage just wore off. He's going to be taking another fall unless the concoction's there. Lol Tangle comes up. First hit coming up from the bear. And Defense of the Assault takes the fall. Viper Strike being used. Actually, it looks like it's being destroyed by Spooky Scary Skeleton. Great reflex on him to be the Windwalk out in time. And AIT stands his ground to eat an Arcane Bolt to the face from Captain Taichu. He's got a Mystic Flare available. He uses it. Unfortunately, completely whiffs it. Concussive Shot, the Unstable Concoction flies out. They're able to get a kill the Arcane Bolt instead. It's a bit unfortunate from Taichu. He expected AIT to be a little bit faster, to retreat a little bit quicker. But he's still able to seal the deal. Caesar Cheese there to be able to back him up. And Caesar Cheese, level 8. This is a very high level of a support position Alchemist. The Batrunner is just hit level 6. So I would say he's hit level 7, but he's going to have a lot more experience compared to the level 8 and the level 6 Mirana. So having the experience up on the Alchemist makes a big deal because his Q, the Acid Fray, is actually it's a very powerful ability. It looks like Alchemist probably going to be going for the Medallion of Courage. Soul Ring is also a good pickup on him as well, but yeah, there you go. He's picked up the Chainmail. So Medallion of Courage is a great pickup on Alchemist because you already have a form of negative armor and all your abilities deal physical damage, and so it increases your damage output if you don't use the Medallion. Because Alchemist has such low armor, the plus 7 armor is huge on the Alchemist. It makes him very tanky, or at least a lot tankier, especially since he has such a huge increase in HP regen from his ultimate. Used to give you bonus HP as well. That was when Alchemist was considered a little bit too strong. Now he's been nerfed. He's strictly run Alchemist as a full position support now. Running him as a farmer is very risky. Switch seriously hasn't called out. Global Silence actually not being used, but Caesar Cheese called out the last word. He takes the fall. The Rage is in the last week's Scary Skeleton. Last Suit at 100 HP. They're able to secure the kill, but Last Suit's got a short enough cooldown. I suppose it's not necessarily the end of the world, just in case if he was able to leap on earlier, but his leap was on cooldown. But that being said, they at least ensured the kill, so you always want to be better safe than sorry. Diablos looks like he's going for a Maelstrom, so he's going for the loader build. Would have actually preferred Mask of Madness first before the Maelstrom, because it gives you a lot more solo killing power, but the Maelstrom also a great pickup. The reason why Mask of Madness is so great with the Faceless Void is because he gets so much damage from the Time Lock. The majority of his damage comes from the Time Lock, especially in the Chronosphere. You just want to kill the target in the Chronosphere. Brightside New Zealand, while they lost their tier 1 in the safe lane, they're going to take their tier 2 in the mid lane, which is much more important. Because I've now opened up this area of the map to either rotate in, so you can gank it through there. You can no longer can farm the mid lane and be safe. And once they take this safe lane, they're depriving them of vault. This much map control is now lost them because the only area they can rotate in is from the tier 2. It's a very long time, so you can't be farming out this far in the lane anymore once that tier 2 drops. Once that tier 1 drops, and you can't be safe in your jungle. Diablos, Maelstrom up on him. He's got the Chronosphere available, so he actually could go for a solo kill over on Arrow King. But Taichu is also rotating in to ensure the kill. He doesn't actually have enough mana for the Mystic Blast, so he's going to have to pop his regen rune if he wants to go for it. But with the time lock damage and the potential Maelstrom procs, you could go for it. But Taichu actually scouted up on the Wolves. Wolves taking a fair amount of damage. Custom Shot flies out over in Scrub. But Scrub doesn't have enough mana for a Stampede. Because the reason why you don't see Centaur Warrunner so much is because the Hoof Stomp nerf does a huge amount of work to him. And Diablo's actually taking a huge amount of damage from the Wolves, forced to leap out so he doesn't die. Could actually turn around and minus one of them. Should be using his minus every time it's off cooldown, but you ideally want to use it on the big creep since it gives you a lot more experience. Skywrath Mage almost has a Bloodstone, and so a pre-20-minute Bloodstone on a Skywrath Mage that's this farm, this early on, is absolutely terrifying. 5,000 gold lead still in favor of Team eSnug. They have never been behind from the very beginning. About 6,000 EXP lead. Smoke rotation coming from Brightside and Caesar Cheese, bit of an unusual support rotation. As Brightside, you don't really want to be ganking with him, you want to be farming. Probably going to be going towards Radius. But actually, the rate that he's been farming, he won't be having it for a while because he opted for Phase Boots on his bear. You usually stick with Naked Boots on your bear. I actually would like to see an Orb of Venom up on the Spirit Band. It's much more cost efficient than the Phase Boots. And there you go, he's actually switching the Midas over to the bear because the Spirit Band does a lot more damage than the hero. So every time it's on cooldown, you switch it to your bear, and every time it's off cooldown. Caesar Cheese running in, throws a concussive, unstable concoction, catches out the standard alpha male. He gets a global silence off in time. Caesar Cheese could actually be taking a fall. He has to rage up though, but there we go. The last hit coming here from the Centaur Warrunner. Captain Taichu calls the lasso. They end this race 1,000 gold. 4-man Chronosphere. Standard alpha male could be taking a fall. AIT as well with Diablos. He's actually caught out position now without the time walk. And Recursion. Huge influx of gold going in their favor. They end the spree on the perfect hero. Batrider now has Blink and they're going to lose the tier 1. The Death Ball coming online with Arab King. The Lycanthrope, despite being so heavily shut down, you never disrespect the big bad wolf. You ever give an inch, you'll take a mile. They're going to lose their tier 1. They're at least making a trade. So great recognition coming up from Brightside. But I don't think he can siege the tower in time. They can actually keep going if they really want to, or they can look to defend. Scrub goes into defend. Lycanthrope should actually continue to push, because they need to take as much gold as possible from the enemy team to take as many objectives. Looks like Centaur Warrunner opted once again for Pipe before Blink. Scrub's done this in both games now. That's cost his team a huge amount. You don't pick a Blink Initiate if you're not going to go for a Blink. You might as well draft another hero if you're going to be going for an early Pipe. Early Pipe against this lineup, it's nice against Taichu. And I suppose it's nice against the Void, but the issue with the Pipe is you have to pop it preemptively in order for it to be effective. If the enemy team jumps you and they're able to, and they get their first salvo of spells off, and then you pop the Pipe, it doesn't really give you anything. You have to use it before you go in. But when you don't have the Blink initiation, when you don't have the initiative or the momentum, Pipe doesn't give you all too much. I mean, I suppose at the moment it means that they can tank up a bit more damage in these fights, since they've got mech up as well. So it gives them a huge buffer of HP. But the Blink Dagger gives you a lot more solid killing power. Brighton New Zealand could be taking fall. Moonlight Shadows there. Looks like there's no dust or sentries available. So he's able to just walk on out. Instead, turn around the bear. So the SBCA going to have a word Recursion. But Brightside is actually juking it out. The face boost does give you a lot more survivability. It's shapeshifting force for this. So they really want this wolf. And he's actually able to get it out of there. So shapeshift being used for nothing. Global Silence coming up, cooldown about 10 more seconds. They can try to take a fight, but they lose their tattoo in the mid lane. Standing Alpha Male, leading the charge. Unstable current concoction's going to be flying out. Catching up defense of the assholes as well as the medallion. But the Mr. Flash completely whoops Captain Taichu. Panic Flare coming up from him. Sees the cheese drops him. But looks like the last to be used on him. Diablo's down around. If he had a Mask of Management, he'd ensure that killed him. Because his attack speed isn't fast enough, he isn't able to kill the Chronosphere. Now he's going to take a fall. This is why you go Mask of Management before the Maelstrom. You have to kill the Chronosphere. If you don't kill the Chronosphere, Faceless Void tapers on incredibly quickly. Because he's so damn squishy, and because you used your escape mech to initiate, they can just turn around and kill you. And so it's the reason why you almost, like, 9 times out of 10 you see the Mask of Madness before the Maelstrom. Because they're both, don't get me wrong, they're both fantastic items. The Maelstrom's a great item on the Faceless Void. It's just you want Mask of Madness first. We've got a quick pause coming out from Recursion. So we're going to be taking a quick look at the Golden Experience graph. We've got about 4,000 experience lead in favor of eSnug. But the Gold lead started to move in favor of Recursion. They did take that tier 2. So even though they lost their 2 deaths, they still are coming out somewhat ahead. It's about 4,500 gold lead in their hands. In terms of net worth, 3 cores over from eSnug, significantly ahead over to the cores over on Recursion. Faceless Void lead the CS scoreboards, and it actually looks like the offlane Centaur Warrunner has the highest net worth. That's due to the fact that he's got the most amount of kills, so he really needed a Blink Dagger. If you've got Bat and Centaur as that double Blink initiation, you've pretty much won every single fight, because you've got such amazing ganking and teamfight presence. You jump in, you lasso a target, you lasso say Captain Taichu, you drop a Global Silence so Diablos can't respond, and you Blink Hoof Stomp stun over on the Mirana or over on Brightside, and then you turn around and blow them up. You've got that 5-6 second window where the Global Silence is up, when you've got that lasso up as well, and when you've got that Stampede, you should be able to ensure a kill on 1 or 2 heroes before the fight breaks out. At that point, if you kill Faceless Void before you get to Chrono off, eSnug are forced to break. They have to run. They can't stand there and fight the ground without their Void. This is Void is the vast majority of their sustained damage. Taichu can still turn around and maybe turn and get 1 or 2 kills with the Mystic Flare and Ancient Seal combo, but if you're able to catch him out the lasso with a Global Silence, you can also kill the Skywrath. The Skywrath is incredibly squishy. He's entirely dependent on his movement speed and his positioning to stay alive, as well as the fact that he does so much damage. He wants to kill them before they can try to kill him. So he really relies on that Alpha Strike advantage. And when you've got the Global Silence from the Silencer to completely prevent that, you can, once again, eSnug, they're forced into that situation of they have a lot more initial burst damage, but their late game, but their overall DPS is a bit lower. So Recursion had that window to be able to try to drag the fight out and try to go for the kill. But this time, in game number 2, they've got a bit more sustained DPS. I mean, the vast majority of Faceless Void's damage should be within that Chronosphere, but he still does right-click very hard, especially once he picks up that BKB, so you can't touch him, apart from with the lasso. In Recursion, they've got a lot of sustain. They've got a bit of burst damage as well with the Centaur Warrunner. It looks like they actually need a bit more time. So a few of the players AFK. Viper does a lot of sustained damage, as does the Lycanthrope. And so this time, there isn't really too much counter initiation for eSnug, but Recursion once again have the counter initiation and the initiation advantage with the Silencer pickup. And so it does a huge amount of work. Looks like the captain's actually off in the bathroom. And Brighton New Zealand opted to go for a Maelstrom. So Maelstrom's a cop-out item, similar to the Diffusal Blade on the Nagasari. It's not the greatest item of the Spirit Bear. It's still good in the sense that it's very cost efficient. It increases your chances of entangle by increasing your attack speed, and it gives you a lot more mid-game impact, so you can take these towers. But Lone Druid, it then turns Lone Druid into a very timing-specific hero, as he gets out-carried quite hard later on, once carries are able to simply right-click down the bear. The disadvantage of the Maelstrom is if the lightning procs at the same instant as the entangle, the lightning will override the entangle, and so it can actually reduce your chances of the entangle proccing, but at the same time, because it increases your attack speed, it's a bit of a trade-off. Usually it's worth it, but the biggest drawback is it means that Brightside can't really split push. He can't send the bear out and push a lane because he doesn't have the Radiant's burn damage. And so the Spirit Bear has to be hitting people for the bear to be effective, whereas with the Radiant's Bear, hitting people is a bonus. Just the fact that you can run down their supports and constantly burn them and force them to run away, but they can't run away from the bear because it's got faster movement speed, means that you can just run people down. And so it gives you a lot more team fighting impact. Lone Druid and Spectre are probably the only 2 heroes that can pick up a Radiance and fight immediately. Spectre can fight immediately when Haunt is up, because the confusion caused by the Horde, as well as all the Desolate and Radiance burn damage, is enough to drop everyone so low that you don't even have to commit to the fight. You commit when everyone's at half HP, so they're not able to turn around and kill you because you can out DPS them in time. And Lone Druid is the same because this bear is so damn tanky, you can't deal with the bear. You can't kill the bear in time, the bear doesn't give a damn, the bear shows no mercy, it will run you down. If you get to an Entangle proc as well, all the merrier. But that constant burn damage does a huge amount of overall sustained DPS, especially against squishy supports, such as the Silencer. And as opposed to Batrider, because Batrider has been playing support here in this case. So he's got his Blink Dagger up. To defense of the assholes, this Batrider pickup has actually been somewhat effective. Even that's mostly due to the mistakes that eSnug have been making. They've been feeding a lot of kills over the defense of the assholes, but Recursion at the same time have been grouping up a lot and trying to take the initiative and take these early objectives. And with that Lycanthrope, they could do that. Diablos now has the Mask and Madness, so he's guaranteed a kill inside Chronosphere. Ward drop as well as a ping coming out from AIT. So he's actually been forced back with defense of the assholes. So there's a ward being placed there by the Radiant side. I believe it should just have enough vision to spot that out. Stampede being used over the bottom lane. They're going on the bright side of New Zealand. Call up the last of the Viper Strike as well as the Stampede being committed. So 3 ultimates being used to ensure the kill. But considering how important Brightside is for the rest of his team, that's more than worth it. He's now picked up his Maelstrom, so 19 minutes in. And with that minus, I suppose he'll going to be picking up something like an Assault Cuirass later on, and maybe even something like a Basher or an MKB. First, a Time Lock coming out from Diablos. He chooses to commit the Chronosphere, chooses to do so, and Arrogant, he's dead. The Mask of Madness, the Maelstrom, and the Chronosphere ensures the kill because you've got the double Time Lock damage every time it procs the Chronosphere. Diablos, he should actually back himself out. He's got Time Lock, thinks about going in, but the rest of his team isn't there. Captain Taichu gets burned down with Defense of the Assholes. One more right click, there we go. Actually, no, he's just barely keeping himself alive. The Bloodstone regen. Very surprised he didn't suicide there. He would have at least deprived him the gold and the experience. And Spooky Scary Skeleton, Phase Boots up on him to give himself a lot more mobility. He's actually almost got maxed out Starstorm, and he's almost got the Yule Scepter. And so the advantage of going for early points to the Starstorm is when you've got an item that gives you mana regen, such as the Yule Scepter, and since it's got a Void Stone, I suppose it gives you enough sustain that you use the Flash Bomb if you really want to. You can deny that top tier 1, but they lose that map control. So in terms of gold lead, eSnug's still ahead, but it's about 4,500 gold lead. It's actually kind of plateaued now. In terms of experience, about 2,500. The difference with this game and the last game is eSnug, their lineup does start to taper off. The Skywrath Mage will plateau. You still do have the Void to be able to set up the Mystic Flare combo. But once BKBs come online and with the Global Silence, he's going to have to force Captain Taichu to have to go for a BKB. Because Skywrath, if he ever gets caught up with the Silence when, or if Diablos gets Silence when he leaps in, standard Alpha Male will be pretty quick with his fingers. Recursion can turn around and counter initiate, and with that counter initiation. Arab King looks like he's gone for Roshan. No Mendelian up on him, so this Roshan's going to take a very long time. This is an amateur mistake. You never go for Roshan as a Lycanthrope unless you have Mendelian. It's very obvious, but Lycanthrope's missing for that long. You know he's either jungling or he's going to be a Roshan. But when the tier 1 and the safe lane's down, the tier 1 and tier 2 is down, in the mid lane, you can't really be jungling, and you never want to give them a free Roshan. Global Silence has been forced. Stampede's been used, and actually switch targets at the wrong time. Go in on Captain Taichu. Captain Taichu should be taken forward. Really should deny himself. Well, he instead dies. Brightside New Zealand on the Invis Rune. They're going in on his bear. But while that's happening, Diablos split pushing the top lane. Brightside New Zealand actually could be losing his bear. Standing Alpha Male eats an area in the face. Mech has been forced. Sees the Chiefs actually stunned as well. He actually stunned himself. And so he's going to be throwing a player's life. And AID just stands the ground and right clicks him down. So Diablos doing a bit of split pushing presence. We've got a rotation coming from Standing Alpha Male. He's got the Chronosphere available. Should have actually used the Chronosphere to go for a solo kill there. On the Silence, and Silence actually got a huge amount of intelligence because he's been involved in so many kills, and Arab King's now going to take Roshan. But ideally, you never want to go for Rosh without a Medallion just because it takes such a long time. They were able to take Roshan in this case because eSnug misplayed, and because they didn't rotate and force. The bear almost tried to stall the Aegis, and it's now backing away. Brightside New Zealand, his Invis Rune just wore off, and he's actually going to be throwing his life away. He's TPing out, but the last two is available. He's actually able to make it out there. Good play coming up from him. He realized the last two was on cooldown, and there's no other way for them to be able to interrupt his TP. So good recognition coming up from Brightside, keeping a clear head. Taichu, he had 9 charges in the Bloodstone, but he's lost 5 charges in the last minute because he's taken 2 deaths back to back, so he hasn't actually been able to accomplish anything. So this is the disadvantage of the Bloodstone, is it doesn't really give you much ganking presence. If you went for a 4-star, he gives you survivability. If you went for the Rod of Aoi, having that snare sets up the Mystic Flare, so it ensures that you can have solo Mystic Flares and guarantee that you get all of the damage procs of it. But because he went for the greedy Bloodstone, if he was able to get a lot of kills with it, it would have been justified. But since he wasn't able to do so, he saw that he might reach the point where he actually starts to plateau. And now gold lead, about 3,000 gold lead in favor of Recursion. EXP lead is actually almost closed. And Recursion, they've actually got the much more powerful late game lineup than eSnug, because they've got this greedy pub pentacore lineup. Their lineup does have the superior late game. And so things are looking fairly grim for eSnug. However, that, especially since if Recursion, if they ever win a fight with a Lycanthrope, you're going to be losing a tower, you're going to be losing potentially a set of racks. Things are looking pretty grim for eSnug. But that being said, they do have a very powerful team fighting lineup. If Faceless Void picks up his BKB, that 10-second BKB charge should be able to win them a fight, and it absolutely has to. They can't afford to rely on the tri-core setup like they did in the last game. Actually, it looks like he's committing for a Molnir. So Diablo's bit of a mistake coming up from him, especially considering that standard alpha male. He's been absolutely on point with his global silences. He's been doing it every single time he leaps in, and when you leap in and you're silenced and you're not able to chrono, the entire enemy team is there. They just stand their ground and kill you. You might be able to deal a fair amount of damage to one of them, but the rest of their team should be able to bring you down, especially with the Viper Strike available. To reduce your attack speed, Viper, he's going for the Aghanim Scepter. He should actually, he's about halfway to it, so you should be picking him up fairly soon at the rate they've been farming. But the Death Ball's now coming online for Recursion. So because Recursion currently have the superior 5v5 lineup, with the global sides available, with all the ultimates up, eSnug, they need a split push. That's the only thing they can do. They can't really hope to defend this unless a Recursion misplay, but you never want to plan for your enemy team making a mistake. You want to have a superior strategy to them and try to beat them through strategy as opposed to waiting for them to make a mistake. Speaking Scary Skeleton, lassoed up, not in the pot of Moonlight Shadow. The global silence drops his wall, and sure he can't get it. He's actually trapped in the trees. Good lasso coming up from defense of the asshole, so he actually didn't position himself to the tree was burned as well. So good recognition coming up from him. And with that, eSnug, they have to retreat. 2-man Chronosphere, but Brightside can't do anything. Lone Drone's a bit of a mistake in this pickup, but they are able to clean up AIT with the Mystic Flare. Brightside New Zealand going a bit deep. They know the cooldowns are down, they're expended from the global silence. You get to the tackle over and stand alpha male. And eSnug, they're actually turning this. Recursion, they only got 1 kill off the back of 2 ultimates, actually 3 ultimates. All their ultimates were committed for this. Defense of the assholes. He's got TP up, but he's actually being revealed by the bear. TP out, but he gets entangled. And Brightside gets a bit of revenge. And with that, Recursion, bit of a misplay. The instant they got that kill, because their ultimates are down, they actually should have backed off. I guess they thought that eSnug would have backed off, but because they expended so many ultimates just to ensure 1 kill, a bit of a misplay coming up from them staying that long. They should have immediately backed off. But eSnug, great plays coming up from them, able to turn that around. Arab King, caught out the silence, was 1 arcane ball, takes a huge chunk of his life. He still has to see Aegis up, and looks like he's going for the Necronomicon. He's got Necro 1 up. But the biggest issue with Necronomicon is you never want to pop your Necro 1. Unless you could guarantee a kill, because the enemy heroes can farm them. They're worth a lot of gold and a lot of experience. Captain Taichu, taking a lot of damage from the Wolves. He's got to be careful. The Wolves, they hurt. They do a fair amount of damage, especially if they've got an inbuilt crit. Pig's coming out. Looks like Spooky Scary Skeleton wants to potentially go for a kill. He's got the Yule Scepter up. But eSnug, they're entirely dependent on this tri-core, so they can't afford to let the game go late. Viper Strike actually being fogged out, so Brightside should be able to walk his way on out of there. Bear took a lot of damage, so he almost lost the bear. You definitely want to feed the bear as well. 300 gold. Don't want to be throwing away that much gold towards the enemy team. He's got that resummon available, so I guess he could have resummoned if he saw the attack fly. But Brightside, he's also got a Molnir, so double Molnir coming out from eSnug, so that equates to a double static storm. That's a huge amount of potential AoE damage available for eSnug. And Molnir, it's one of the most cost-efficient DPS items in the game. It gives you more... I said this in pretty much every single game, that there's a debate between the Molnir or the Daedalus on the Faceless Void. Molnir gives you a lot more overall DPS on heroes, assuming the armor value is above 10. And with the Vladimir's offering, the armor value is almost always going to be above 10. And so Daedalus isn't going to give you too much. Since Faceless Void scales better with attack speed, then straight up damage. Spooky Scary Skeleton, caught up with the last two, blown apart. Recursion are constantly grouping. And so eSnug, they have to capitalize on it. They have to keep split pushing. Because they can't fight as 5 when all the ultimates are up, unless the Recursion make a misplay they did before and stay too long after their ultimates are down. But that being said, eSnug, they can defend things if they're able to wait out the first wave ult, so they don't take too many casualties. Brightside, fling, and he doesn't have the Viper Strike available, since he used it to ensure the kill on the hero that was already dead. So stacking the ultimates there. Captain Taichu comes with the concussive shot. He's got the, and they've got the Chronosphere available, so if Diablos rotates in, they can try and turn the fight. But Scrub, he's left alone. He actually isn't there yet, but he's got the Global Stampede, so he can still provide a lot of presence if he needs to. Sees the Cheese playing very far forward. Looks like he's going towards the Vladimir's offering, so he's going to stack as much armor as possible for the rest of his team. It looks like Global Silence has been used to catch out Diablos. Diablos takes the fall, and they have that huge fighting advantage. Now Stampede's been used, and Brightside New Zealand caught up with the Viper Strike, sees the Cheese, taking a fall. as he backs off, as he's forced back by Arab King, but Arab King's completely on his own. He does have the Aegis though. Bright Side New Zealand's still alive. He's incredibly tanky, but he will be taking a fall. As the double brings it down, but Arab King, Mystic Flare's there to clean him up. He's going to be taking a fall. The Aegis is popped. Sees the Cheese down out of position with the last word. He's going to be taking a fall. As the force self trying to keep him alive for a little bit longer. Tricky Scary Skeleton, he's got Yules as well as the Leap available. So it should be the disengage. Centaur Warrunner still not going for a blink. For the love of gaming, go for a blink dagger. Every time Centaur doesn't go and blink, as a puppy dies and Half-Life 3 is delayed. Don't play a blink initiative. You're not going to go for a blink. It goes against the whole purpose of your hero. You don't want to rely on Stampede. You don't want to rely on other blink initiators to do your job. Your one job is to Stampede, blink, and Hoofstomp. If you can do that, you've pretty much won the fight for them if you're able to catch up more than one hero. So if you get a blink, Hoofstomp, and 2, say if you catch out Taichu and Seize the Cheese, you can start a fight and win the fight off the back of that, because you've got the global stance to follow up, you've got the lasso also available. But if you, there we go, now he's finally picked it up. So Recursion, if they had a blink available for the Warrunner, they'd be able to win these fights a lot more decisively. So this is the reason why I take issue with this build, is yes, you still are winning these fights, but you're winning these fights because eSnug are playing sloppy, and because you've got that superior team fighting lineup. You never want to rely too heavily on that. You want to press the advantage while you have it. Because if you ever lose a fight against eSnug, if you get wiped, and Diablo's able to find a fair amount of farm, he is a very powerful late game carry. The gold lead still is in eSnug's favor, despite all these towers. Because they're grouping up, and the experience lead, it's starting to move a little bit closer towards Recursion's favor, but still heavily, it's still can swing towards eSnug, just because they've been grouping up so much, and eSnug have been spreading out a bit more. And you're finding a lot more farm, a lot more levels on their heroes. Captain Taichu, 4-star now up on him, so he's got that guaranteed escape mech. So it gives him a lot of utility. Also gives him a fair amount of damage potential as well, because it increases the Arcane Bolt, and it means that you can get another Arcane Bolt in, or at least 2. Scrub runs very far forward. He had that blink deck. He actually could have gone from blink initiation, but it looks like he used it earlier. Pops the pipe. Moonlight Shadow being forced. They don't have any dust or any sentries, so Diablo simply runs up high. He actually should have kept running, but I guess he's looking to try to turn this around, as the rest of eSnug are grouping up. Brightside New Zealand. Hammer of Thor up on the Spirit Bear. Goes and catches it. Oh, never mind. He chose not to go for the Crossbane. He didn't have enough mana. Diablo's not able to do simple mathematics, and he throws the fight. Sees the Cheese, fleeing for his life, pops the raid, arrow flies, completely whiffs. Sees the Cheese takes the ball. Lasso, he used the 100 HP target. Save the Lasso, go for somebody else. Trying to make it another kill. Scrub blinks in, gets Yule Sceptered up by Spooky Skeleton to ensure the disengage, but they should be able to take the tier 2. They don't have to criticize. That was the one ace in the hole they had to try to win these fights. Brightside New Zealand, he can't defend this, he should try to go split push another lane. His bear's flying up, he should at least have the Static Storm buff on the bear, so that when they go in the bear, they're taking a bit of damage in return. Since they're forced to deal with the bear, but the bear's just running up, he's not even attacking them, he's just sitting next to them, taking a huge amount of damage. If the bear dies, Brightside New Zealand's in a bit of a pickle. He's got the resummon available, actually the resummon, he did lose the bear, the Necronomicon minion was able to finish it off. 300 gold going in favor of Arab King, and a Lycanthrope pickup. It's the reason why you ban Lycanthrope is even if you do shut him down the lane, because he's such a simple hero in the sense that he doesn't have any. There's not too many moving pieces to a Lycanthrope. You win a fight, you take towers. You take enough towers, you win the game. So even if you shut him down, because just through levels and just with the Vladimir's, he offers so much pushing power. It makes it. He's able to punish every single mistake you made 2 or 3-fold. Because you not only do you lose a fight, you lose a tower, you potentially lose 2 towers, or even set of racks. So Lycanthrope play doesn't even have to be good. So long as he's able to drop, he's alive when you win the fight, you can win the game off the back of that. So Arab King, all he has to do is just run at them in these fights and try to stay alive and provide that strategic advantage with the pushing power. So he doesn't even have to be present in these fights. He can actually be split pushing another lane. And so it's the reason why teams ban out the Lycanthrope. It's similar to Broodmother in TI in the post TI 1 to TI 2 period. Broodmother used to be banned out by a lot of teams because she was so damn annoying. It was not that the hero was intrinsically broken. She was powerful, but there definitely were counters to her. It's just that she was so damn annoying in the sense that you always had to rotate and react to the Brood that teams just didn't want to deal with her. It's much safer just to ban the hero. That season, she actually looks like Brightside New Zealand called out position, and he takes a fall. The lasso is committed for that. And actually, it looks like lasso was saved this time, so he didn't commit the lasso for that. Viper Strike was used instead, but he's got an Aghanim Scepter, so 12-second cooldown. And Alpha Male number 1, huge amount of intelligence up on him. Looks like he's gone for an Aghanim Scepter. He's got the Aghanim Scepter. So Recursion, they actually have the much more powerful team fighting lineup. So even though the gold lead and the net worth still is in favor of eSnug, it's much more evenly spread out for Recursion. The only hero actually looks like this hero leading CS score, but once again, this is Centaur Warrunner. Split pushing happening in the top tier 2, they're able to take it. Captain Taichu, TP's out to the side, turns around, stands the ground. Scrub did pop the blame mill, almost kills Taichu. Taichu is forced back, he actually might even die from the cost of the silent damage coming from the global silence. Diablo's caught him with the stuns, the Hoofstomp blue. from Scrub before he took a force. The Blade Mail doing a lot of work. He was able to get it before the Mystic Flare dropped. Force tied Druid back. Diablos now took a fall. Questionable decision making coming out from them. They should have immediately disengaged with the Global Silence drop. They should have dropped the Chronosphere and ran like hell and tried to TP on out. Captain Taichu's got the force up, so he should be to make it up. But Barrett picks off Spooky Scary Skeleton and Recursion. They're making a huge comeback in game number 2, despite the Goldies still being in eSnug's favor. It's now just moving back into Recursion's favor because they have this very team fighting lineup with this Pentacore lineup. Because the laning stage, even though it went well in favor of eSnug, Captain Taichu, he just wasn't able to accomplish enough on the Skywrath Mage. They weren't able to take enough objectives because he constantly left AIT alone, even though he destroyed them in the early laning stage, because Skywrath Mage was never there, and because Brightside New Zealand, once again, the lack of a Radiance is really crippling these teams. When you have a Radiance carry and you don't go for a Radiance, you're losing a huge amount of that hero's potential. The reason why you draft that hero is to go for the Radiance. You never want to pick up a lone Druid and say, I'm going to go for a Maelstrom as my first big item. You don't want to pick up one position Nagasari and say, I'm going to go for Diffusal Blade as my first big item. You do it if you're absolutely forced to. Because it cripples your hero's potential, it cripples your DPS output, it delays your farming mechanic, which is what Lone Druid relies so heavily upon to be effective. And on a hero like Lone Druid especially, it cripples your pushing power. And that's the real issue. If Lone Druid had the Radiance, and even if you're losing these fights, he can constantly split push, you can take your tattoos, you can actually play some Rat Dota and start pressuring your racks. Now catch out Scrub. Scrub once again, he's acting as a retard magnet. He's so damn tanky right now with the Vitality booster, the pipe, Chronosphere flies, but unfortunately catches up right on New Zealand. Standing Alpha Male, he's dropped his no global silence, he's also able to kill up Scrub. Great focus fire coming up from Diablo, he's prioritizing right targets. Defense of the Astral takes a fall, and eSnug, they might be able to do it. They've got a 1 minute window of opportunity where they can try to run through mid and breach a set of racks, or at least force out a buyback. Buyback is available for Scrub. And standing off a man, I believe he's got buyback as well. But Global Silence is coming up full now, so they have to force the issue right now. If they don't do this, if the game drags out for a bit longer, then they're taking a huge gamble. Because if they lose, the next fight they lose is going to be the end of the game for them. Unless they have buybacks up on all 3 of their cores, it's going to potentially lose in the game. We've got 2 buybacks, they have to disengage. They don't have their Chronosphere, they don't have any other big ultimate stuff. They've got Mystic Flower, it's not going to be enough. Huge force out coming out from Captain Taichu, saves Diablos, Yule Scepter as well to ensure the disengage. Global Silence first before he got the Moonlight Shadow off Spooky Scary Skeleton. He has to keep himself alive for as long as possible so he can get that Moonlight Shadow off. There's no dust, there's no sentries. The Moonlight Shadow could be enough to ensure the retreat. Diablo's still caught up the sides, but there's no dust to ensure the retreat. And to ensure the detection, Diablo should be the making on out of there. Still not going for a BKB, he hasn't learned this lesson yet. Every time you time walk in, you're going to eat a Global Silence. And this disengage could be huge. Because Diablos is still alive, he doesn't have enough bars to TP out, so he's hiding in the trees, praying they don't come and knocking and looking for him. Stand up a man, he just throw a custom signs in this direction. He'll be get a kill. He unfortunately guesses high, but Diablos was low. Oh, he guesses low, but Diablos was low. He runs in the air, T just smacks him, says, oh, a gift for present for me. Smacks him down. Skywrath Mage looks like he's actually going for what looks like a Shadow Blade. Probably not the greatest pick on the Skywrath. Would have actually liked the Sheepstick. He has to go for a Sheepstick to deal with Arab King. Since if you're not able, or even a Ghost Scepter, to ensure that Arab King isn't able to just run up at you and smack you around. Speaking of Scary Skeleton, he runs into the lasso, trying to farm up the creep wave. Greedy plays coming up from him, that's being punished. And with 2 heroes down, that's a set of racks. If you don't have buyback up, you've got buyback up in the void and you've got fortification, so they could try to hold this if they force the buyback. But Recursion as well, they don't have Global Silence. So they have to be very careful. They can't win a fight without Global Silence, especially since lasso was also used. And so if eSnug are able to hold their Tier 3 and win this fight, they can win the game. But if they lose this fight, it all boils down to this next engagement. Scrub, acting as retard magnet, running very far forward, with the share amount of HP he has, still very even game. Gold and Experience. Experience is now moving in favor of Recursion on the back of those kills, but Gold still is perfectly even. This is a very back and forth game. Arab King, Mr. Fire, unfortunately, was catching out on 2. Concoction flies, that's a 1 second concoction. Stab BB, you see the cheese, what are you doing? He's called out of position, goes too far forward, there's no supports there. Buyback is now coming out from the Faceless Void. But I don't think they can hold this unless they be able to get the best crossfire of his life. Diablos has to go in, but he doesn't want the entire team is clumped. He could have gone for a crossfire, he does! He catches out the entire team apart from Arab King. 4-man crossfire, Mr. Blade now flies on 2. Alpha Male takes the ball as well as the Barrow, defense of the Astral takes the ball. Scrub's caught up with the entangle. AIT standing his ground, making it a retaliatory kill of Diablos. Mini's able to bring him down with the toxin damage. Arab flies over his weak scare skeleton over to AIT and they're able to hold the line. They do lose their set of racks, but they have to push mid now. There's no buyback available on their core heroes. They have to go mid, they have to try to end the game now, or at least take a set of racks and balance it out. If they don't do this, Recursion have the late game advantage, and they're going to lose the game. Gold is still completely even. It will be about 1,000 gold maybe in eSnug's favor after all the kill gold being calculated, and our experience about 2,500 experience lead. But Diablos, he hesitated for a bit. He still wasn't able to get a good Chronosphere, but the lack of BKB on the Faceless Void means that every time he walks in and initiates these fights, the instant the Chronosphere wears off, they just stand their ground and kill him. But the advantage of the Lone Druid is similar to a Lycanthrope. He offers you an obscene amount of pushing power. He really is wishing he had that Radiance, because the extra damage helps you push a lot faster. But that being said, the double Hyperstone attack speed with both the Molnir and the Hyperstone he's picked up going towards the Assault Cuirass does give him a lot of survivability. Spooky Seer Skeleton being harassed down a bit by the wolves, and they have to try to take this they have to try to at least breach high ground and take that tier 3. But they're forced back. They're not going to commit to this. And Recursion, they're given a brief reprieve. They have no buyback up. And Seize the Cheese, really questionable decision making coming up from him. He's running too far forward and catching himself out of position. He has to wait for he can't start these fights on his own. He has to wait for Void to initiate these fights. If he doesn't wait for Void, every time he runs in, he's going to get blown apart. If Alchemist isn't, you need Alchemist alive so that not only can you throw out the concoction, but the acid spray. The acid spray is really going to be the critical factor. Recursion, they have so much armor, and since Void's also opting for a Chrysalis, he still is dealing a fair amount of physical damage, so you need that acid armor inside the Chronosphere, as well as the unstable concoction afterwards. You need the Alchemist alive to be able to do this, and also to provide the Vladimir's aura over to the Faceless Void. Otherwise, if he runs in and gets caught out and gets blown up like that, he's pretty much throwing the game for his team, because they can't fight this 4v5. They need every advantage they can to deal with Recursion's superior teamfight lineup, because they have this Pentacore lineup, and because it wasn't punished enough. Diablos, he's going towards a Daedalus, so still no BKB up on him. And this really is the critical factor. Faceless Void without a BKB, it doesn't matter how much damage you do, unless you can kill every single member of their team inside the Chronosphere, they can turn around and stand their ground. Especially if the rest of the team is up, especially if the Viper is up. Since Viper's so damn tanky, if Diablos focuses him in the Chronosphere, he's the only hero he can kill. But he wants to kill off the Batrunner, he wants to kill off the Skywrath Mage, the Silencer, sorry, before they could get their ultimates off. And so things are looking very grim. Standard Alpha Male, all he's been doing every single time is saving his Global Silence for when either they go in to prevent Void from counter-initiating with the Chronosphere, or for when Void jumps in. And every time Void is silenced, you lose that fight, because he can't get a good chrono off. And Void without a good chrono, you might as well draft another hard carry. You can do a lot more work with another hard carry. Mage, which is the Shadow Blade. What am I watching right now? But he's able to blow up the silencer, so he's actually able to make it work. Would have maybe preferred that a bit earlier on if he decided to go for the Shadow Blade. But that being said, and Recursion, they've been very lazy with this entry one, but what's happening? Split pushing over the bottom lane for Scrub, so he's not, he drops to the stab, Peter provides some utility. Diablos, he's being kited up by AIT, and AIT can stand his ground and actually kill Diablos. He's actually can kill all three of them right now. Viper doesn't give a damn, he's got a BKB, he catches out Spooky Scary Skeleton, he uses is on cooldown, AIT pops the BKB, he's got the Viper Strike coming cooldown very soon. He doesn't want to focus on Seize the Cheese. The Seize the Cheese is the lowest priority target. If he's able to get a kill over on Captain Taichu, you can make it work. He goes in, Viper going 1v5 as a one-man army, the entire team of eSnug is there. There we go, Global Silence being committed. Never mind, that was the Ancient Seal. He's able to kill Captain Taichu. He's got a 5-second respawn time because of the Bloodstone. Seize the Cheese is there, he's able to get the concoction off this time. And they're finally able to kill AIT. But the Viper, he runs in, he pops the BKB, he doesn't give a damn. He's going to outlast, he's going to out-DPS you. The Void can't go 1v1 against the Viper unless he's able to get a first hit time lock in and try to stun lock him down. Otherwise, the Viper can snare him up with the Viper Strike. Since all of Viper's abilities, not only do they snare attack speed, they also snare movement speed and attack speed. So it's very cripples Void's ability to fight in 1v1. Because Void's so heavily dependent on his attack speed to be able to win these engagements. He's relying on stun locking them to death with the time lock. And if he can't do that, then the Viper can outlast him and out DPS him. Especially with the Mask of Madness up. You can scare Skeleton, Lantern Error, and they're able to clean up defense in the assholes. Scrub, he's got an Invis Rune, looks like he's going for a harder Tarrasque. So he's pretty much acting. So they've got two retard knights. Both a Viper and a Centaur Warrunner. They just have to stay alive in these fights and run at the enemy team. And they're able to achieve their job. Seize the Cheese. Looks like he's having a fantastic hoof stomp initiation without the Blink Dagger. Spooky Scary Skeleton leaps up. The Global Silence is there. Global Silence curse the silence damage will be enough to be able to bring down Spooky Scary Skeleton. He Yule Cycles himself up to purge it off. He purges off the silence, but he takes the fall. Seize the Cheese. Going to take a fall with a double ledge. And eSnug, they tried to breach high ground, but they're being punished. Brighton, New Zealand, first to bash coming from Eric. Eric actually backs away. What the hell is he doing? He could have chosen to commit for that. And they said turns around Diablos, but Diablos, he catches out two of the coins. He stands going to kill Eric King. So Eric King, a huge misplay coming out from him. He should have committed for Brightside. Brightside runs back into the fray, and he's able to get another entangle over an Alpha Male. Scrub, the prioritizing the wrong target. It doesn't matter if the Centaur Warrior is alive. You have to kill the Silencer. He's the huge teamfight impact of this team. He's actually dealing a huge amount of damage as well. With the Glaives of Wisdom, Eric King takes the fall, and they've got that option to try to breach high ground now. It's still pretty iffy though. They want to slow siege this with the bear. That's what they're going to do. Brightside New Zealand, parking himself there while the bear pushes up. Defense of the Asshole, he's back though. He's got Blink Dagger available. He actually goes in, very short range blade, catches him out with the lasso. Last word being used. Alpha Male throws on the coastal side. They should be able to get a kill over on Bright side. There's a good plays coming out from Recursion. The Pentacle lineup doing a fair amount of work because the game's gone long enough. The only reason why this is working is because eSnug made a series of mistakes in the early game. They were able to take towers from the Lycanthrope, using the Lycanthrope, and they're able to eventually find farm for the Batrider to get his blink. This is an incredibly greedy lineup that only worked because of eSnug's mistakes. So make no mistake, this is definitely not some strategic genius coming from Recursion. That being said, the silence of that is strategic genius because it works very well against the Faceless Void. But that's also because Diablos is too greedy to go for a BKB. So Recursion, they're winning this game not so much because of their own play, but because eSnug are making all these huge mistakes. If eSnug weren't making these strategic mistakes, Recursion would have their work cut out for them. And eSnug actually would have the advantage to be able to turn this game. Because Recursion, their line is far too greedy. Their 5 cores, the only reason why they're able to take these fights is because of the misplays. Speaking character actually leaps himself forward into the loving arms of Recursion. He's going to be eating a lasso. The Mirana plays coming up from him haven't really been too impressive. He's been doing this a lot. Either whiffing arrows or putting himself in really bad situations. So both Caesar Cheese and Spooky Scary Skeleton kind of dropping the ball a lot with their performance so far. Alchemist looks like he actually opted for the mech, so he's going to be the mech carrier for the team. Does do a lot of work over the Alchemist, gives you a lot of survivability. But as far as items go, probably wants to go for something like maybe a Heaven's Helmet. Actually, he loses the Ranger Axe as the split pushing power coming out from the Lycanthrope. Just the Wolves, the slow siege is able to bring it down. Dust is finally up on Arab King, so they finally learned their mistake 40 minutes into the game that every time they pop the Moonlight Shadow and you don't have Dust, they're going to disengage. Alpha Male caught up with the corner sphere, no Global Silence for you this time. Mystic Flash dropped in, sure the kill. Arab King runs in, but he's got to be a little bit careful. Global Silence is actually being used as standard 101, comes in, buys back, so Alpha Male is able to do his job and catch on the entire team. Taichu goes step to just wore off, it's about to wear off now, there we go. The last is dead and surely he can't get away, and that's another kill. Going in favor of Recursion, and it looks like game over for the boys in eSnug. As the gold lead's still in their favor, because they've got a lot more farm over in their cores, but it means very little when the rest of your team is constantly being picked off, when the Recursion have that superior team fighting lineup. And the second to the Rex going to be taking a fall. Arab King, because he's alive, he doesn't have to do anything. He can just right-click a Rex and be able to take it down. This is the power of the Lycanthrope. It's why he's banned. Even if the Lycanthrope play is absolutely atrocious, not saying that Arab King is, but even if he is, because he's such a simple hero to execute, and regards to how much pushing presence he gives you, if the rest of your team does well, the Lycanthrope does well. And much more than any other carry, because with other carries they don't have that obscene pushing power. Diablos walks himself forward and dies. That's a buyback on cooldown and expended. And Recursion, they've pretty much just won the game at this point. Because Caesar Cheese is going to be cleaned up. Captain Touch actually does turn around for a retaliatory kill. Scrub bleeding for his life. Mystic Flash will be coming off to cooldown very shortly as well, so he concussive shot, needs vision before he does it. Accidentally whiffs the concussive shot. Force off coming to cooldown 1 second with the stampede. And actually, he's actually TPing himself up. Mystic Flash could be coming off cooldown and bring him down. Not there in time. Aaron also not there in time. So eSnug able to at least hold on to their range Rex, but they lost their melee Rex. They have to try to push now, but the only pushing power that they have comes from Brightside, and they've got buyback available in AIT as well as Arab Kings. They both have their buybacks up. And so Recursion, they know that they've pretty much secured the game at this point. With the 2 Rex advantage with the Lycanthrope, so long as they don't lose the game, so long as they don't get completely wiped and caught without buyback, they've won it. But since so long as they have enough gold for buyback, and they don't play too stupidly, they should be fine. That's the advantage of having a Lycanthrope in your lineup, is he's a very simple hero to execute strategically. You don't have that many moving pieces, you pretty much go through a checklist. Does Lycanthrope have Vlad? Does he have level 7? Yes. Is he alive? Yes. Did you win that fight? Yes. Okay, you take a tower. You get a huge influx of gold for the rest of your team, and with that gold lead, you take another tower. Because now you're supporting a lot more gold, now you have your core items up. Scrub, doing a bit of a potato hoof stomp, just not even sure what he was trying to do there. Right to New Zealand, does get caught at the last side, the Moonlight Shadow being committed. Actually standing his ground, the bear took a lot of damage defense to the asshole. Arrow flies over on Scrub, and Bright to New Zealand keeps himself alive. The Spirit Bear still down, doing a huge amount more. Works is mauling them. Global Silence flies out, the dot damage might actually be enough to bring him down. Never mind, he'll just barely keep himself alive. But Defense of the Assholes knows he's there. There's no bear available for him. Captain Taiji forces himself forward into potential certain death. As the Blink Deck is available, he eats the Viper Strike. He's using the Ghost Scepter to TP himself back out, but when you TP out with the Ghost Scepter, it actually purges it off. And so AIT just throws out one more right click. And Batrez is able to bring down Brightside New Zealand. In the meanwhile, Captain Taichu forced to buy back, trying to hold on to the game. And Recursion, they immediately back off. They know that the late game's secured for them. They're going to take Roshan, they're going to play it safe. They can actually just drag the game out for another 20-30 minutes, and they're still going to be able to win, unless if they get caught without buyback, and they get completely wiped. But assuming that all you have to do to not get caught, to not lose the game at this point is hold, save, goal for buyback, it's very simple and very easy for Recursion to be able to execute. And so the Pentacle lineup, doing a lot of work, That's baffling because his lineup shouldn't be working, especially with the fact that Centaur opted not to go for a Blink Dagger, but the misplays coming out from eSnug through the game for them. That being said, Recursion is still have been playing very well. Stand-in Alpha Male, he's been absolutely fantastic with the Global Silence. Every single Global Silence has been absolutely pivotal. So he's been making up for the rest of his team. He's been getting these fantastic account initiation as well as the initiation support. So even if the initiation is a bit sloppy, because of the Global Silence, then they can continue to go forward. Sees the cheese, runs forward, throws out the unstable concoction, does catch out Eric King. Eric King's back on time, and he immediately takes a fall. He's done this every single time. He runs in, gets the concoction off, or doesn't, and he immediately dies, because the rest of the team isn't there. I don't know why he keeps running forward like this when you've got your core position heroes down. You can't fight as 5. And Recursion, this time just go for the jugular. They go for the Tier 4s, because they know that eSnug, they can't defend this. They don't have a Chronosphere out, they still don't have a BKB on the board. Diablos, a lot of blame for this game is rest with him. The lack of BKB has cost him the game. Every single time he goes in like this, he dies. When you have... The BKB carry should be seen as a damage item on the carry. Especially a hero like a Void, because it gives you 10 seconds where they can't touch you and you can beat them. They can't snare you, they can't control you, unless they decide to... They do have the Viper Strike and the Lasso, so maybe that was his rationale, but the magic damage is also a critical factor. The Scrub could just blow you up with the double edge. And GG well play has been called, so it looks like we are going for game number 3. So 49 minutes in, Recursion, off the back of some very impressive play of their own in regards to their team fight, coordination, as well as some very sloppy play coming up from eSnug, are able to drag it out to game number 3. But that being said, well played coming up from Recursion. They did execute their draft very effectively, even if it was mostly primarily due to the fact that eSnug weren't able to execute that draft as effectively. But once again, the importance of the Radiant on the core position farmer having a huge impact. So the lack of a Radiance on the Lone Druid really cripples his ability. Even though he had huge amounts of net worth, Lone Druid with huge amounts of net worth but no Radiance means that you can just ignore the Spirit, unless the Spirit Bear is hitting you, it's not going to be relevant, and the Spirit Bear can only hit one person at a time. With the Radiance, you're dealing damage to their entire team. So we're going to be taking a quick break, and I believe we'll be loading into game number 3, but that being said, it is a school night, so we could be seeing game number 3 postponed till tomorrow, so stay tuned for a little bit longer, and I'll be sure to keep you guys updated.